everyone, today we are going to talk about getting out of the comfort zone as a producer and as a recording engineer. I think it's crucial for both of these roles to be as versatile as possible. You want to be able to tackle anything that comes your way, especially if people are giving you money. Now, no one's paying me any money, but I do think this is good practice to become a better recording engineer and producer. And hopefully not only I, but you guys as well, will learn something from the process. And 99% of the time I'm recording a song, it involves me banging on a drum set, some electric guitars, some electric bass, and someone screaming into the vocal mic. And for that sort of setup, I know exactly what mics I'm going to use, I know exactly what compressors I'm going to use, I know the EQ that's going to make the room sound good on the drums. I know all these things. So instead of doing that, I prompted us to change the genre a little bit and kind of change our approach entirely and do an acoustic type of setup. My buddies Alex and John were going to play on acoustic, and I was going to initially follow with some percussion, and we kind of do like a kumbaya type of song where we're all singing around one microphone. So I start setting up an overhead ribbon microphone that is pointing straight down. And I already know going in that this setup is going to be very difficult for me to record because I'm kind of battling the excess reverberation around the room. The room we're recording in is just my living room, and there is so much reverberation that is in this room that it makes recording in general very hard, and doing a quiet acoustic set like this is going to make it even more difficult. And while I'm doing all this setup, John and Alex are kind of doodling around until they find some riff that is going to work for our little jam here. And whenever you're in an unfamiliar recording situation, you always want to start with one microphone. It's especially important when recording a live ensemble like this to have as minimum amount of mics as possible, and this is to avoid any phase cancellation issues between two microphones. It's important to establish a good room sound for a live recording like this, and you want to find a bass point before you start putting close mics on things. And ideally with this ribbon microphone as our overhead, we're getting a good pickup of John playing guitar and doing some singing, Alex playing some guitar, and me playing some percussion. And after a super quick test, I could already tell that we're going to have to put a close mic somewhere. And now I have to decide which microphone to use for the second microphone. In this scenario, I think the most important characteristic of your microphone is going to be your pickup pattern. And right now I have a figure 8 microphone as the overhead, and it's getting a pretty good mixture of the direct sound below and the diffused reflections coming from my ceiling. Luckily, I have pretty tall ceilings here, and they are also slanted, so the reflections are nice and diffused and not harsh. So for the second microphone, I'm going to choose a omnidirectional microphone, and this is for two reasons. An omnidirectional microphone allows you to pick up sounds from all directions around your microphone, and it allows you to pick up those signals at an even frequency response. In other words, this microphone is not rejecting sound from any direction. And this may sound counterintuitive if you're trying to close mic something in a situation, but let's consider if you used a directional microphone such as a cardioid microphone instead in this situation. In a basic sense, a cardioid microphone allows you to reject some sound coming from the rear. But this only tells you half the truth. You must keep in mind that this pickup pattern is dependent entirely on the frequency of sound hitting the microphone. As a general trend, high frequencies are more rejected by the cardioid pickup pattern. At about 500 Hz, the microphone is pretty much acting like an omnidirectional microphone. This is referred to as off-axis coloration. And what this means is that the background noise you're going to be hearing in this microphone is going to be distorted. A common place this effect is seen is when you're trying to use a cardioid microphone to pick up a singer's vocals, and the muddiness of the drums comes through just fine, but the high end, the cymbals, some of the toms, you don't really hear as much. Now let's say in that same situation, you're going to use an omnidirectional microphone instead. that background noise, let's just say that drum set, is now not going to be colored by this off-axis frequency response. It's going to be true to the source, and that may mix better with your room mic. And I'm saying may here because every situation is going to be different, and you can't make a generalization like that and saying an omnidirectional microphone is always going to be better in these types of situations. And I think before I even bother close micing anything with this second microphone, I try it as another room mic, and this one is much closer to the instruments, and I'm just going to test it out and see what kind of sound I get. And my first thoughts is that I'm probably going to move this microphone closer to John because he's going to be singing the vocals, and I think it's going to be important to get those vocals as upfront as possible and not pushed too far back in the mix. And as I'm moving these microphones around to find the best balanced arrangement I can get, I am also considering what preamps to use as well as how much compression I want to put on these tracks. And as far as preamps go, the ribbon microphone as the overhead is going into a tube preamp, my MP 5.66, and then I am running that through a VCA compressor. And on the compressor, I'm using a modest ratio of 3:1, a slow attack time, and a pretty fast release time. And I'm really not looking to see a lot of gain reduction here when I'm recording. This song is going to be really subdued and not very loud, and I'm not really trying to tame anything crazy like someone banging on a drum set. The second microphone that eventually turns into the vocal microphone is going straight through my console into another VCA compressor at a moderate ratio of 5:1. It can become difficult to get a consistent vocal track in these relaxed recording environments or live recording environments where the singer is moving their position a lot, shifting, moving while they're performing, as opposed to the situation where someone's standing up in a vocal booth and they're keeping a consistent distance of, say, 6 inches away from the microphone. In that situation, there's going to be a pretty consistent audio level reaching that microphone. And here's where the importance of good compression comes into play in order to get a consistent vocal track. Now, John likes to make my life a little difficult by building up his vocals by starting quiet in the beginning, and towards the end of the song, sometimes he's belting out the chorus. All kidding aside, when a singer has a very wide dynamic range to their singing, you have to kind of build in some extra padding with your compressor, and you might need to go with a slightly higher compression ratio depending on the situation. And all this talk about compression is making me think of a conversation I had with someone from my last video about tracking with compression. And their respectful rebuttal to the video was basically along the lines of, in a modern recording studio, recording on a DAW, it's not really necessary to track with compression. And I truthfully cannot disagree with any of the points that were made. And I admittedly have zero experience recording on a DAW, so my opinions on the matter are very limited. Despite that, I think in situations that are similar to the situation we are watching and analyzing right now, it may not necessarily be beneficial to track with compression, but I certainly don't believe that there is a downside. And just as I'm adjusting microphone positions here, I'm also going to be adjusting compression settings as well to narrow down exactly how I want the signal to be processed. And this iterative process is what I think makes this exercise beneficial to becoming a better producer and recording engineer. And remember, throughout this whole video, we're kind of writing this song on the spot, and I'm also kind of directing the direction of the song based on what I hear through my headphones and where I think sonically the sound should go. Alex and John are really taking the brunt of the songwriting portion of this song. And I'm going to be cycling through instruments myself, trying to find the best instrument that I think is going to carry the mix of the song. And we're finally going to hear one of the test takes over the control room monitors. And let's listen through the camera built-in microphone and kind of get a gauge of where the mix is at.
Oh, this would be so fucking good, dude.
actually liking everything how it's coming out. I don't have a close mic on the bass, but it's actually filling up really nice in the room mic without doing anything special. I'm definitely going to have to play around with the vocal levels and how much reverb I'm adding to them. At one point, Alex got out his bass guitar to see if that would sound better in the overall mix, but we all ultimately decided against it as the flat wound strings on my bass fit the mellow mood of the song more than the more aggressive sounding round wound. We're finally at the point where I admit my role as a percussionist and I get out my conga. I have a towel on top of my conga to give it a more subdued sound, and it's not going to be traditional kind of Latin percussion type of sound for this song. The first thing I'm going to do is move down this room mic and place it in a position where the drums are now going to be in the null of the ribbon microphone's bipolar microphone pickup pattern. The goal here is to exclude the drum sound as much as possible from this ribbon microphone. In order to pick up the drum sound, I am now going to use a close mic. And for the reasons I mentioned before, I would go for an omnidirectional microphone here, but I don't have more than one omnidirectional microphone, so we're going to resort to the classic SM57 for a cardioid pattern. And my hope here is to try to reject the acoustic guitars and John's voice as much as possible. Ideally, I'd like this ribbon microphone to now pick up Alex's acoustic guitar, and the omnidirectional microphone to pick up John's vocals and acoustic lead. And right before we do another take, I decide to add some bongos to my percussion setup, and that is when all hell breaks loose. And I don't remember who started the jam, but we started jamming out on a completely different riff from the song we were working on this whole time, and we wind up liking this one more and just rolling with that one instead. And the new song was going to carry the same energy as the previous, so I didn't have to make any drastic changes to any of the choices we have previously made. And after listening to the first test take of this new setup, I realized very quickly that we were going to run into some trouble with the percussion elements leaking into the other microphones. No matter how softly I would hit these drums, they would seem to overpower both of the other microphones. So I'm going to do a little microphone swap here. I'm going to put the omnidirectional microphone onto the drums, and I'm going to put the cardioid microphone onto John's vocals. I'm hoping that the vocal mic will be able to get as much of the drum sound out of the microphone as possible. This way they don't overpower the vocals. And I'm hoping the omnidirectional microphone is going to be able to capture the total ensemble of the percussion elements. And once I add the snare drum to the percussion ensemble, it's going to become impossible to remove the drum sound from the other microphone, so I'm just going to have to learn to deal with it. Now I'm going to move the ribbon microphone into a position that fully utilizes the bipolar pickup pattern of the microphone. I'm going to place the microphone in which one side is picking up Alex's acoustic guitar and the other side is picking up John's acoustic guitar and vocals. I'm also strategically placing it so that the null of the bipolar pickup pattern is rejecting as much sound from the percussion elements as possible. And I'm only going to be able to avoid the direct sound of the percussion elements. I am not going to be able to avoid the reflections coming from other directions. But I think if I eliminate the direct sound as much as possible, we are going to be able to have a usable product. After this test take, John decides that he's not going to be playing acoustic on the final take, and he's just going to be singing, so I move the ribbon microphone that was kind of acting as a room mic now closer to Alex's acoustic guitar to get that as much as possible. And we finally all got to the point that we were happy with how it sounded and we were ready to do a final take. The song was still very much in its improv stages, and personally that's my favorite time to record a song. We were initially looking to do a song that was recorded live without any overdubs, but we changed our minds and Alex wound up laying down some bass. I added this really somber and creepy reed organ, and I think I added some shaker and tambourine as well. And from there was very little mixing to be done as I was iterating my recording process with each test take and getting slowly and slowly closer to what I wanted in the final product. And although I never got to the point where I was 100% happy with the mix, I got something that was at least usable. Let's listen to the end product now.
Wee.
So there you go. There is the end product. Hopefully you guys liked it. Please let me know what you think. I hope the theme of today's video inspires you to try to put yourself out of the comfort zone in your recording space. And remember, a big part of being a good producer and recording engineer is being versatile. And please let me know if you guys like this type of video. It's kind of long-winded. It almost felt like I was narrating a podcast for a second there. And I don't know if this is too much information, not enough information. Let me know what you guys think, and we'll go from there. Good night, and good luck.